Hi, this is Kanaya, and today I'm going to give you some tips on what to do if they having the same conversation. So if someone keeps bringing up the same conversation repeatedly, you can try to gently redirect the topic, acknowledge that you've already discussed it, and ask them if they want to talk about something new, or directly address the issue by saying you like to move on to a different topic. Depending on the situation, you might also consider having an open conversation about why they seem to keep revisiting the same subject. Here are a few strategies to handle repetitive conversations. Acknowledge and redirect. We already talked about this. Is there anything else you like to discuss? Likely joke about it. Seems like we stuck on the loop here. How about we try a different conversation? Ask for clarification. Are you trying to get a different perspective on this topic? Or do you want to explore something new? Set a boundary. I'm not comfortable talking about this again. Can we move on? Open communication. If a close friend, consider having a candid conversation about why they might be repeating the same points and if there's something you can do to help. Consider points to consider. Context matters. Context matters. Depending on the situation, your relationship with the person, you may need to approach this more directly or subtly. Let's see, subtly and subtly. Be respectful. Avoid being accusatory or dismissive when addressing the issue. Consider their perspective. Sometimes people might repeat themselves unintentionally due to anxiety and or wanting to ensure understanding. So now we're gonna say, well, I'm gonna tell you reasons why they switch up their conversation. So the reason we switch up our conversations for a variety of reasons, including feeling uncomfortable with the current topic, wanting to explore different aspects of a discussion, avoiding a difficult subject, or let's say, so avoiding a sensitive, let's go back to this for a second. So avoiding a sensitive subject, gauging the other person's interest, or simply because our thoughts naturally shift to something else during the conversation. So, key reasons for changing the subject in the conversation: discomfort. If a topic becomes too personal, sensitive, or controversial, people may switch to something more neutral to ease tension. Engagement. Changing the topic can help keep the conversation dynamic and interested by introducing new perspective or areas of discussion. Reading the room. Observing the other person's reactions can indicate if they're not going to engage with the current topic, promoting a switch to something they might find more interesting. Shifting focus. Sometimes our thoughts naturally drift to a different subject, leading us to change the conversation direction. Avoiding conflict. If a topic is likely to lead to disagreement, someone might change the subject to maintain harmony. So let's see what this means: maintain harmony. harmony. Maintain harmony. So maintain harmony, you can practice, but to maintain harmony, you can practice mindfulness, communicate openly, connect with nature, and cultivate healthy relationship. You can also try to be compassionate and empathetic and to compromise. Let's see what that means. So maintaining harmony means to preserve a state of agreement, balance, or peaceful coexistence. It can involve mutual respect and understanding. Examples: living in harmony with others means living together peacefully rather than fighting or arguing. People singing in harmony are in tune with each other. A balanced life thrives with fulfillment in various important domains. So that's the reason that we switch up our conversations. So it says, let's see what sensitive subject is. Sensitive subject. So a sensitive subject is a topic that can cause strong emotions such as discomfort, distress, or anger. These topics can be personal, controversial, or culturally taboo. Let's see, taboo. Or taboo. Taboo. Let's see. Taboo. Oh yeah. So controversial, culturally taboo, and it can be difficult or uncomfortable to discuss. Examples of sensitive subject: gender, sex education, birth control, disabilities, mental health, substance use, intimidate partner abuse, sexual assault and harassment. Why are some topics considered sensitive? They can be personal or controversial. They can be cultural taboo. They can evoke strong feelings or opinions. They can re-traumatize or cause secondary trauma. How to handle sensitive subject. Be aware that the topic may be difficult or uncomfortable. Dealing with the topic carefully to avoid upsetting people. Acknowledge that the topic may cause discomfort and that is part of the learning process. So if you talk about a sensitive subject with someone, that means you're having a personal conversation with them, stuff that they don't feel comfortable talking. So let's talk about that more. A sensitive subject examples. So sensitive topics are topics that can cause strong emotional responses such as discomfort or distress. These topics can be diverse and include race and ethnically ethnicity. So race and ethnicity. So race and ethnicity can cause disagreements or upset people. Gender and sexuality can include LGBTQ issues, sexual assault and harassment. Mental health can include physical or mental health conditions. Abuse can include child abuse, intimidate partner abuse, and human trifling. Substance use can include drug abuse. In addition, death and loss can include grief, trauma, and the death of animals or people. Politics can include political opinions and social justice. Religion can include religious, spiritual, and other belief. Disability can include physical and mental disabilities. Let's see what this socioeconomic socioeconomic statutes can include class and money. Relationship can include conflict, toxic relationship, and family violence. The definition of a sensitive topic can depend on context as well as social and cultural norms and values. So some people might not getting to this sensitive subject, so they would rather talk about something good. So now we can see. So what it says, what topics can they talk about? So depending on the situation and people involved, potential conversation topics could include current events, hobbies and interests, travel experiences, food, work, family, local news, pop culture, recent movies or TV shows, sports, books, art, music, weather, or even just asking questions about the other person's day. Always be mindful of sensitive topics like politics or religion, or dress accordingly. Key points when choosing a topic. Gauge the other person's interests. Observe their body language and absorb their body language and responses to find topics they seem engaged in. Start with neutral ground. If unsure, begin with general questions about the day or current event. So let's see what neutral ground is so we can get a little understanding. So let's talk about neutral grounds for a sec. So that we can get a little understanding. So neutral ground with people. So neutral ground when referring to people means a place or a situation where neither person has an advantage or is considered home turf. So essentially a common area where they can meet without any pre-existing power dynamics or biases, allowing for more impartial interaction. It often implies a place neither person frequently visits or is particularly familiar with. So, key points about neutral ground. Impartially, the key idea is that neither party has a vested interest or home field advantage is the chosen location. Conflict resolution, often used when people have disagreements or need to have a serious conversation, meeting on neutral ground can help create a more level playing field. Example situation. Two colleagues with tension meetings for a discussion at a coffee shop neither usually go to. Two friends from different neighborhoods deciding to meet at a park at a neutral area. So let's see what's starting with the neutral ground is. So it's about asking like how their day was, and so let's see. So with people. so when you start so if when you start a if you start with a neutral ground with people, it means you begin with a conversation or interaction with someone by establishing a non-biased and impartial position where neither person has an advantage or is already leaning towards a specific leaning towards a particular viewpoint. So essentially, starting from the middle point, where both parties can openly discuss a topic without pre-existing tension or assumption. So it says, key points about neutral ground. No favoritism. It implies not taking sides. No favoritism. It implies not taking sides or showing preference for one person's perspective over another. So, open communication. Starting on neutral ground, encourage open and honest dialogue with both parties feel comfortable sharing their thoughts. Avoiding conflict. This approach can help to prevent arguments by creating space where people can discuss issues calmly and respectfully. Example situations. Meeting for a sensitive conversation. Let's meet at the coffee shop downtown so we can start on neutral ground and talk about this issue. Mediating a dispute. The mediator will try to guide the parties involved to find neutral ground where they can reach a compromise. So that's what neutral ground is: to start a conversation with someone by establishing a non-bias. So let's see. So we define neutral effect as feeling indifferent, nothing in particular, and a lack of preference one way or the other. So it says, what does it mean to meet on neutral grounds? So in a place that is not connected with either of the people, groups, or countries that are involved in a discussion, argument, war, or competition. So it says, what is the meaning of neutral person? Commonly used to describe a person who doesn't pick sides in dispute. So now we can go back to the So now we can go back to choosing another topic. So now we know what neutral ground is. Neutral ground is. So now we can say, so neutral grounds is where you start a conversation and ask about the day or current event. So now it says ask an open-ended question. Ask an open-ended questions. Encourage deeper conversation by asking questions that requires more than a yes or no answer. Sharing your own experiences. Relate to the topic by sharing relevant stories or opinions. So you can talk about good topics about what is your favorite food to eat. Or you can say, hi, how was your day? What did you do today? Or what is a topic what's a topic that you're interested in talking about? So these are questions right there, guys. These are questions that you can ask a friend or a family member about their day, and they'll tell you what their day was and how it is, and they can talk about what their day was and what is their favorite thing to do. So it's kind of like giving supporting details about themselves. So you can ask questions like, "Oh, what is your favorite hobby?" Or "What is their favorite place to go to?" Or what is their food to eat? Or what is their place to travel to? Or so they might ask them their favorites, like their movie, their free time, and their hobbies. So stories like that could help. Their stories could help by talk to. So it says topics to talk about with a friend. So it says so it says so now we can say topic questions. So when you ask a question, or they might talk about guys might type or they might talk about their goals and stuff. So goals can be another thing too. So to ask to a person. So to get to know someone better, you can ask questions about their hobbies, interests, travel experience, career, their favorite thing like movies, books, music, childhood memories, personal values, future goals, options or current events, and even hypothetical scenarios like if you could have any superpower, what would it be? So, general conversation starters. What is your favorite way to spend a weekend? What is on your bucket list? What's your dream job? What's the best books you've ever read? Where would you live if you could live anywhere in the world? What's your go-to comfort food? Deeper conversation topics. What's a cause you feel strongly about? What's your biggest accomplishment? What's one thing you wish you could change about your life? What's your favorite family tradition? What's a skill you've always wanted to learn? What does succeed mean to you? Fun and hypothetical questions. If you could have any superpower, what would it be? What would your perfect day look like? Which celebrity would you want to have dinner with? If you could travel back in time, where would you go? What's your favorite financial character? Remember to adjust your questions based on the situation and your relationship with the person. Always be respectful and mindful of their personal boundaries when asking questions. So, the reason why I say this is you want to make sure if the person is feeling comfortable about talking about the topic, because we don't want the person feeling uncomfortable. So unless if the topic is really necessary to talk about, we have to make sure that we ask questions firmly so the person can understand and answer the questions right. Such as, why do we ask the question firmly? Not firmly, so let's see. So, when someone asks a question firmly, it means they are expressing a strong expectation for a clear and direct answer, often indicating a sense of seriousness or a need for immediate clarification, implying that they want the response to be given with conviction and without hesitation. So when you ask the question firmly, you are expecting a strong expectation for a clear and direct answer. So key points about asking a question firmly. So firmly, firm. Let's see, firm. Firmly, yeah. So when you ask a question firmly, you have to use your assertive tone. The firmly part suggests a more assertive tone of voice, conveying that the asker is not open to vagueness or obligately or obligatly ambiguity. Ambiguity is the quality of being open to multiply interpretations or having more than one meaning. So, ambiguity. Vagueness and ambiguity in the response. Seeking commitment. It can imply that the asker wants the respondent to be fully committed to the answer and stand by it. Possible underlying concern. Depending on the context, asking a question firmly could indicate the asker has a potential concern or issues related to the topic and needs a definitive response. Examples: Can you firmly tell me if you are going to attend a meeting today? This suggests the speaker wants a clear yes or no answer and not looking for any uncertainty in the response. So now that you have to keep your questions as simple as possible. We don't want to avoid. So let's see, what do we want to avoid when asking questions? So what do we want to avoid when when asking questions, so that people can understand. Yes, so it says, what should we avoid? So what should we avoid it when asking questions? So you should not ask a question that it's possible to answer a question. It's possible to answer. Well, let's see. So saying nothing is better than asking a bad question. So it says, do not ask questions that hinders action. Do not ask questions that have already been answered. Do not ask questions that are meant to distract. Do not ask questions, even good ones, in the wrong setting. So I know that some answers could be a yes or no, and some questions can be for like clarification and never question clarifications and stuff. So it says, so now we know that asking, yeah, now, ask questions. So now it says, what questions you avoid when asking effective questions. So asking questions that requires an extended response, or at least a contact answer. Avoid questions that can be answered yes or no, unless you are going to follow with more questions to explore reasonings. Why avoid asking why questions? Why questions can make people clam up because they can be challenging, proactive, and direct. When you ask a question such as, why do you think that, you are asking the participant to defend and justify his or her thoughts or point of view. So the thing is, we want to avoid, the things that we want to avoid is asking too many questions, or asking personal questions that they might not feel comfortable talking about, because the thing is, it's okay if you have questions, but we don't want to ask a question. We don't want to ask a question that's going to make the person feel uncomfortable to others. See, so the thing is, so if you ask leading questions, so leading questions can often provide false answers because of the tendency is just to repeat back or paraphrase what the question asker said. They don't want to give you any insights into what people are thinking. So the question that should not be asking a question. So you should not ask a question that is it possible is so it says, so let's see. So now, because we don't want to ask questions that's gonna be too so let's see. So now, first thing is first. So the things that we want to avoid is asking more than one question at a time, asking questions that are not pitched at the right level, asking leading questions, and we want to avoid asking too many why questions, or we want to avoid asking why questions, asking the same type of questions, not allowing thinking time, calling all participants to answer the question, calling all participants to answer questions, ignoring or not understanding responses, not keeping the discussion on course, and asking any questions. Well, you can ask any questions, but we don't ask. So the thing that we want to avoid when asking question is asking the same question that asking more than one question at a time. You ask more than one question. So the thing that we want to avoid is asking questions that are not pitched at the right level, asking leading questions, and asking too many why questions. Or you just asking the same type of questions. So let's see what this means. Asking questions that are not pitched at the right level. So let's see what this means. So asking questions that are not pitched at the right level means asking questions that are either too complex or too simple for the audience you are addressing, making it difficult for them to understand or engage with the topic properly, essentially not tailoring your questions to the appropriate knowledge level of the people you are speaking to. So key points about this phrase. The context matters. The right level depends on the situation, like a teacher asking questions to elementary students versus a professor asking questions to graduate students. Potential issues. Potential issues too complex. If the questions are too too complex. So if the questions are too advanced, people might feel overwhelmed and are not be able to answer effectively. Too simple. If the questions are too basic, people might feel patronized. People might feel patronized. Patronize. Let's see. Patronize. So people might feel patronized or bored, not challenged to think critically. Answer examples scenarios. A teacher asks a first grader to explain a complex scientific theory. A manager asks a new employee a highly technical question about a system they haven't been trained on yet. So let's say if a new employee hasn't been working on a new job yet, so they might not know the answer. They might not know the answer to a question about a system they haven't been trained on yet. So they have to be trained on first in order to answer that question. So a presenter asking an audience with basic knowledge of a topic very detailed questions about a advanced concept. So if you ask the questions too complex, but it might be too overwhelming for people to understand and answer. So we have to so the reason why I try to break this down to you guys so that you guys can understand, the causes and the effect of the situation, because we might not know we might not know the answer to every single question that they ask. So they might have to ask for clarification if this happens. So if the question is too hard, too complex, they might ask them to clarify to make it a little bit easier. So let's talk about how to avoid this issue. So to keep the situation from persisting. So assess your audience. Understand the priority of knowledge and the level of expedite of the people you are asking questions to. Vary your questions types. Use a mix of simple recall questions, analytical questions, and higher order thinking questions to cater to different levels. Start with basic questions and gradually increase complexity. This helps to build understanding and conflict before moving on to more challenging topics. So that's what it means when you ask questions that are not pitched at the right level. Means you ask questions that are too complex or too simple for people that you're addressing it, making it hard for them to understand or engage with the topic properly. So we don't want to do that to the person. We want to make it easier for them to understand the whole purpose of the topic or the situation. So this is the last thing I want to discuss, guys. So we don't want to ask questions that's too hard, too complex, or too let's see, what's the other word again? The too simple. So that's another one thing. So it says, how do you make the topic easier for the person? So to make the topic easier for someone, you could break it down into simple terms. Use relatable analogies. Provide real life examples. Ask clarifying questions to gauge understanding, and avoid technical jargon. Like avoid asking questions that people might not understand. So essentially, tailor your explanation to a level of knowledge and use physical aids when possible. Key strategies include: start with the basics. Begin by explaining fundamental concepts before moving on to more complex detail. Use analogies and metaphors. Compare the topic to something familiar to the person to make it easier to grasp. Ask questions. Engage the listener by asking questions to check comprehension and address any confusion. Provide Real world, real world examples illustrate the topic with concrete situations that the person can relate to. Physical aids utilize diagrams, charts, or images to visually represent information. Simply language. Avoid technical terms and use clear, concise language. Break down complex ideas. Divide complex concepts into smaller, manageable parts. Tailor to the audience. Consider the person's background knowledge and address your explanation accordingly. Active listening. Pay attention to the person's responses and address any concerns they may have. So, this is how you make things easier for the person. So, the reason why we do that is we want to break something down or break it down to make it easier for the person to understand as opposed to you asking questions that are not pitched at the right level. So now, or even when you ask a question to a person, you can break down the question by explaining. So if you ask a question that a person doesn't understand, or if the person doesn't understand the question, what you can do is you can phrase it using simple language, focus on a single concept, ask open-ended questions that allow for detailed answers, and avoid jargon or overly complex wording. So the special I'm going to use is avoid asking questions that are not pitched at the right level. So we don't want to ask them questions that's too hard and too easy. So essentially, tailor your explanation to the level of knowledge and use physical aids when possible. So it's pretty much the same thing. You can start with the basics, use analogies and metaphors. You can ask questions or provide a real life example. So it's pretty much the same as making it easier for the so key strategies to simplify a question. So you can use plain language, you can avoid technical terms or overly complex phrases, you can break it down complex ideas. If the topic is intricate, separate intricate. So if the topic is intricate, separate it into smaller, more manageable questions. You can start with what or how. These promotes encourage detailed responses instead of simple yes or no answers. Clarify the context if necessary. Provide additional information to help the person understand the question fully. Use positive framing. Rephrase the question in a way that feels encouraging and less intimidating. Examples: difficult question. Explain the inadequate gnosis of quantum mechanism or mechanisms. Simplify question. Can you describe in simple terms what quantum mechanism is about? Because the person might know the answer to the question that's being asked. I know some questions can get a little tricky. So let's see pronunciations. Quantum. So let's start again. So difficult questions. So let's start over so we can see the understanding of what it is. So this is intricate. So gnosis, magnesis. Let's see. Mechanics. Intricate. So the difficult question is explain the intricate gnosis of the quantum mechanics. So the simplified question might ask is, can you describe in simple terms what quantum mechanics is about? So I'm gonna tell you myself what quantum mechanics is. So let's see what we can do to make the person understand what it means. So I will tell you myself. So the quantum mechanics is the branch of quantum mechanics is the branch of mechanics that deals with the mathematical description of the motion and interaction of subatomic particles, incorporating the concepts of quantization of energy, wave particle duality, the uncertainty principle, and the correspondence principle. So to explain this in simple terms is quantum mechanics is the field of physics that explains how extremely small objects of the simultaneously means at the same time, of the simultaneously have the characteristics of both particles, tiny pieces of matter and waves of matter and waves of disturbance or variation that transfer energy. Physics called the wave-particle duality. So if a person doesn't know that yet, they might ask them to make the question a little bit easy, make it a little bit easier for them so that they can understand. So that was the whole purpose of having a conversation with that person. So it says, how do you make the question stronger? So it says, so you can open it up to a question saying, if you want something more than yes or no answer, take a closed question and open it up by starting the question with words like what, why, and how. So instead of asking how things changed since last year, better to ask how have things changed since last year. So now, how do you avoid a difficult question? Being vague. Being vague. Go say vague or vague. Vague. So let's see. Being vague. Let's see. So we want to avoid being vague. Let's see. So you being vague. So how do you avoid difficult questions? Being vague. Another way to deal with unwanted question is to give only some information to the other person. This is called being vague, which means unclear or uncertain. Expressions like let's just say and all I would say are common ways to be vague in both formal and informal situations. So let's see. So let's say. So now the person is asking, how much did the jacket cost? Let's just say it cost more than my old one. So in some cultures, it is impolite to ask questions about money. With this response, Nellie has given Don a little bit of information without saying the exact price of the jacket. So let's say someone else asked the question and they said, did the negotiation go well? All I would say is that both sides are happy with the result. So that's not giving really a response of how the negotiation went well. So Joe's vague response lets Sam know the negotiation was successful without giving important business details that may be private. So, addition to your vague answer, you can change the subject by adding a comment or question of your own. So, let's just say it costs more than my old one. That's a nice jacket that you're wearing. All I would say is that both sides are happy with the results. Anyway, how is business with you? So it says returning the question. So instead of refusing to answer or being vague, another thing you can do is to ask the other person why they want this information from you. Be sure to do this with a smile and a polite tone of voice. So it says, do you live in this? So the person asks, do you live in this neighborhood? why do you want to know? So the person might want to know this question. So instead of you avoiding the question, you can just answer it. So it says, let's go back to the questions for a second and then I'll explain what it is. So it says, may I have your phone number? Can I ask why you need that information? So in some cases, the other person may realize that their question was too sensitive subject. So you know why I say that? So the question that they asked was too personal. So that's not questions that you should be asking to a person, and even if you don't know the person yet. So it says, in some cases, the other person may realize that their question was too sensitive or personal for you. However, this doesn't always happen. Some people can be nosy, which is an adjective that means too curious or interest in other people's life. If they still want you to answer their question, you can use one of the examples from earlier in the article to politely refuse the answer. So if you don't feel comfortable answering that question, you can refuse the answer, or you can ask, why do you need this, or why do you want to know my personal information? Or so now we understand of asking why. So now I'm going to tell you how to politely ask your own questions. So now let's look at some ways you can ask questions that don't make others uncomfortable. If you would like to ask something but you aren't sure if it's too sensitive, try using one of the following examples. So, do you mind if I ask you a personal question? Or, I'm not trying to be rude by asking you, so is it okay if I ask you about with these expressions? You can make it easier for the other person to refuse if they do not want to answer. So in conclusion, learning how to avoid difficult or inappropriate questions is a useful communication skill in any language. Remember not to feel pressure to share information you do not want to share. With the expressions we showing here, you can politely let the other person know that you would like to share some things privately or some things private. So now we understand the whole purpose of the having a conversation and asking questions is so the things that we want to avoid is we want to avoid talk so we want to avoid about the things that we want to avoid is to talk about things that are too sensitive subject or something that they won't feel comfortable talking about, and so we don't want to ask questions that's too sensitive subject or too personal for the person to answer. So if they ask you a personal question, then you can answer it or you can choose not to answer. So I hope you like, subscribe, and comment down below on my YouTube video, and I hope these tips help you to have a conversation and the questions that you can ask. So thank you again for watching this video. Stay tuned for another video. Have a good night, everyone.